In order to create temporary electronic circuits using electronic components, we will use a solderless breadboard as our means of construction. Here's a typical solderless breadboard. The first thing to notice is the horizontal trough that runs the width of the board from left to right, dividing the board into a top and a bottom section. Next, see one of the tiny columns of holes into which you will insert the leads of various electronic components. All 5 holes in the first column above the trough are connected together electrically inside the board. Insert a lead into any one hole and it's electrically connected to the other 4. To build electronic circuits, we insert 2 or more components and/or hookup wires into these columns. Notice the column of 5 holes below the trough. These 5 holes are connected to one another, but they are not connected to the column of holes above the trough. The trough of any solderless breadboard divides the board in half electrically into a top area and a bottom area. There are never any connections between the columns above the trough and the columns below the trough unless we make one with a component or wire. There are no connections between any adjacent columns. A component in column 1 has no connection to a component in column 2, 3, etc. In addition to a trough and columns of holes, most breadboards also have a set of horizontal rails located at the top and bottom of the board. Our example board has a single rail at the top and a single rail at the bottom, but many typical boards have 2 rails both top and bottom. I've gone with this simplified board to make things easy to understand for this first course. The rails are simply another series of holes electrically connected to one another, but unlike the columns, all the holes in each rail are connected to one another. So the rail at the top of this board, for instance, has 5 holes, a short gap, another 5 holes, another gap, etc. All these holes are electrically the same. The internal connection bridges across this gap to the next set of holes, etc., etc. Rails are used in more complicated circuits to distribute 5-volt power and electrical ground to various parts of a circuit. I've labeled the top rail red to indicate that it will supply 5-volt power, and the bottom rail black to indicate that it will connect to ground. We'll see more about rails as we make complex circuits in later videos.